I'd like to call our regular township board meeting of September 9th to order at 7:02. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mary, would you take roll?
Nickel?
Here.
Finley? Here. Getzinger?
Here.
Hitter?
Yep.
Swyacki here.
We have approval of our August 12th regular meeting.
Motion to approve August 12th minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's for a matter of record. Set and amend the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Support?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the agenda has been approved. Bills?
I've got a question regarding, I believe, the park invoice that's on here. And based upon my understanding from what the insurance adjuster wrote back was that there would be coverage for the building, but if there was flood damage, that it would not be covered.
That's right. It's already under
And
covered.
based upon Jim's motion from last month, said that we would pay the bill based upon contingent upon approval of the building inspector for code and proof that it will be covered under insurance given its location. So we have the location of where it's at, and the insurance adjuster clearly understands and noted that it's in the in the floodplain, which means that there's no insurance if there's a flood.
Okay,
Well, if it washes it away, there's no insurance, but if a tree hits it or fire, it's covered.
Or if it falls on a
Or
kid.
if it fall, right, yeah. And then also, Mr. Mel did do an inspection, and he approved that inspection,
Yeah, we
which
got
I,
the finals.
Okay, so you
Right.
got, you
Yep.
got that part, but it did say that the insurance adjuster said that if there's flood damage, that there's no coverage to it. So you've got a township asset of $11,000 that will not be covered if there's flood damage.
Well, we have a situation, like we said last time, where, because our park director gave guidance to them to build it, we do two things. We tear it out of the ground because it was built without a permit, or we work with it. That's it. That's all you can really do. We called, it's insured. Flood stage would have to be somewhere between 10 and 12 feet to get to the cement.
Where's that information at? Then it would have to be 10 to 12 feet.
If you stand on the cement, just look at the river. I'm just using an eyeball. If you stand on the cement, you look down at where the river is, where the water is, it would have to be significantly high. Let's just even say 8 feet to get from the river to where the cement is.
Okay,
And
so,
that's to get to where the 4x4s are, and that's what, 8-foot, 10-foot 4x4s from there. So you got 4 posts in the ground, and if we get to a 100-year flood event where you have a 12 foot of water, I think we're gonna have all kinds of other issues, other than the 4 posts from the pavilion. But the reality of it is Gary gave Steve permission to move forward on it. Steve has placed the fences in the park without permits. He's placed the dugouts on the ball diamonds without permits. We put in the playscape without permits. So he put in the pavilion without a permit. So it wasn't an unpracticed rule, because actually the dugouts are really the same thing. There's 4 or 6 posts and a roof on them, other than they're not sitting in the floodplain, they're sitting on a baseball diamond that kids sit under. So we either tear it out of the ground or work with it. And I think the insurance is $4 a year, I believe, is it? So.
but for this year and the next, I'm not sure exactly how much it'll go up. It's
But
$4
that's not
this year.
completely true, though, because 2 years ago, the same company received permission for $8,750 to do the 2 new dugout tops and fencing. So it's not unusual for this company to know the rules that it has to come before the board. And that was in April 11th, 2018, and that was for only $8,750. So this is not like,
We
oops,
put
never
the ball
thought about
diamond-
that.
We did put the ball diamond in front of in front of the board because we were actually converting the soccer field into a ball diamond once the Love Day shut down. But he didn't pull permits for it.
Well, but he still got it approved before, permits is because we are a township. But he still got it approved, so he knows the way this is supposed to work.
And you
he
mean
was
Gary
told-
there
He
or
was
the
told by
builder?
the park director that it was approved.
So, okay, well, I'll go with the facts that we have in place in front of us. The motion that was made, so yes, Mel went out and inspected the building, okay. The other part of the motion was that Jim made was that it would be covered under insurance given its location. So answer me this, the insurance adjuster clearly stated that they've noted that it's in the floodplain and that it does not have flood coverage, but it has building coverage if a tree were to fall on it or an individual were to get hurt, correct?
It does have insurance, yes.
No, that's not what I said. It has coverage based on that it's, if there's damage to the building structurally from a tree falling on it,
Everything
there's
but
that
flood.
coverage. If there's roof damage or if there's an individual that gets hurt underneath it, it's covered. But if there's flood damage, there is no coverage.
Right.
That's, okay, that's what I wanted to hear so we understand. So we do not have everything completely covered based on what the motion was. And the insurance adjuster clearly stated that there is not flood coverage because it's built in the floodplain.
Well, the motion was given its location. It was very specific. And another thing I don't understand is why you paid for the building permit. Why are you paying for the building permit? Is this something that the township is going to do, or are you paying it on your own?
No, I'll turn in a bill for it, but I want to.
Wait a minute, so you're gonna turn into a bill for it?
Yep.
So you're gonna ask for reimbursement, so the township is going to pay the permit for this? Wouldn't that be a board authorized thing? Why would you take it upon yourself to
Because-
pay the permit for this, when, especially when it's up for discussion?
Because it wasn't put into his quote, he didn't have to pull a permit again for the dugouts, he didn't have that figured in, and he needed the permit for the inspection.
Okay, that's great, and you can do that all you want, but once you turn in a reimbursement form, now the township has to pay for this. So your intent here was not to pay for it yourself, it was just to cross hands over, here you go, and I'm gonna reimburse it, just like you did with the skate park. I think that's very underhanded, the whole thing. Why don't you just say, the township needs to pay for it and put it up for a vote? Why do it like this?
Because we needed the inspections done and he had to get the permit.
No, we didn't need the inspections done with the permit right there, because everything about this has been backwards. So that is not an excuse.
Given, I know we discussed this at length last meeting, but given that I think we all agree there is some fault on multiple levels here, if the township chose to not accept it because of where it's at, do you feel that we're still obligated to pay the bill or something? I mean, I do, I guess,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
in my opinion,
Not
Jim, what
always.
was your motion?
I agree, you're 100% correct, and maybe we need to make a new motion, or maybe somebody should make a motion if they think we should approve it. You're 100% correct. Last meeting, that motion was intended as, because there was concern about the floodplain. My biggest concern was that the building department would accept it given its location. And so Mel has looked at it, as far as I'm concerned, it's $11,000, which in the big picture, it's real money, but in the big picture, it's not a building. And there's some liability, I think, to the township, some obligation to the township, I should say, to pay for the mistake that the township made for this pavilion. And realistically, the supervisor, I agree with his statement that the water level, it may be in the floodplain, but that means that there's, I don't exactly know what that elevation is for the determination of that floodplain. And I don't know what the finished floor elevation is of that pavilion, but my suspicion is that that 100-year flood is not very high up on the post, let alone the roof, so there's probably quite a small risk, likelihood that there will actually be any damage to that. And again, considering everything else, the liability, particularly the fact, if this builder had come in, built it without permission, any word from the parks director, I think this would be a whole different story. I wouldn't have any guilt, I'll say, or feel like the township has any obligation to accept this. It's not flawed structurally, it's just the location, so I'm
feeling like using a little bit of judgment, it would be appropriate to proceed with this. Again, if it was a $500,000 building, there's a whole number of things that would change my opinion to it, but given how much it costs, where it's at, and the likelihood of an issue, and the responsibility that we have, I feel like we might be spending more money to defend that decision if we don't pay it. That's where I'm at. I mean, you agree with any of that?
But you don't, okay, so you say that your potential, and they base it off a 100-year floodplain, which is correct. I don't think anybody ever anticipated that we'd have a 100-year pandemic either, right? And here we are in the middle of a 100-year pandemic. Potentially, again, we scrutinized other employees here about just the asset program, right? That disposed of lawnmowers, disposed of odds and ends that were less than $500, that were heavily scrutinized about that, yet we're going to potentially bypass a motion that was made and carried last month, and we're gonna talk about, we don't have elevations, we're gonna base off of someone's opinion. I disagree on what the elevation is over there, John, but that's not what the discussion was, and we're looking at protecting the township assets. This isn't about any person who did the job. It's solely the fact that you're here to protect the township assets. And the insurance adjuster said it's not protected if there's flood damage.
You're gonna pay for it even if you tear it out of the ground.
Oh,
So, Trustee Nichols, I guess technically correct that we didn't satisfy that motion, so what does that mean?
you satisfied half the motion from
Yeah.
based upon,
Can-
you know, what you've got
Getting the
there.
inspections done.
Yeah,
That was why I paid for the permit, so I could get the inspections done. And again, it still goes back to the same question, are we turning it out of the ground or are we working with it?
and so, at what point would we make another motion if we haven't satisfied that, or is that, where does that put us if we,
Well, it's
Settle on
really
the
not on
fact
the
that-
agenda item. You could make a motion to approve everything but that. I mean, you could do that, or,
Okay, I'll make a
But
motion.
I'll-
We're doing the bills right now, so I'll make a motion to approve everything except the one bill for Avid Construction.
I'll second that.
Trustee Nichol makes a good point about, I am concerned about the precedent, not in the liability part, because in my opinion, quite honestly, I think we should pay for it. If it means waiting one more month, because I do not want to set, I'm concerned about if we pay it and we go against a motion that the board's made, what does that mean for every other motion that the board made?
Was the intention of your motion to make sure that Mel was okay with the building?
No, it's
Well,
not.
it was-
It's not the
it
intention, it
was-
has to go by words.
He's correct that it certainly was twofold. It was the building inspection, and it had to do with insurance, and given its location, it was, and I remember this a month ago, was, is there a concern with it being in the floodplain? To me, that concern has been addressed, but it's, technically, it hasn't per the motion, so I don't know how to, is it prudent to wait to pay it? What happens if we don't pay it this month? Can we bring it up next month?
How long's the guy been looking for this?
I
Since
understand,
February. yeah. All right,
but I get frustrated when we don't follow policy manual. I get frustrated with a lot of things, and I feel like now I'm a hypocrite now if we.
No, it's, we're not tearing it out of the ground, and even if we do, we're paying for it, so either way,
Either way, we have
it's
to
gonna
pay
get
for it.
paid for. It's not, the concern was that Mel went out there, and he had them add hurricane straps to it, he had them add the sway gussets to it, and he had them fix the building up. Yep, to make
He
it
did.
to code, so he would inspect it. Matter of fact, he put smaller straps on, and Mel had him put bigger straps on, so it was done appropriately. We did that so that we can take care of the contractor that came in and did what Gary asked him to do. Again, this kind of falls back on us. Gary told him that he was approved to go ahead and do it. That's why he started it. He didn't just all of a sudden show up one day with a steam shovel.
Yeah.
But Gary told him to put it into a spot that is in the floodplain.
Gary told him.
Yeah, he did.
It completely violates
Yeah.
the fact that we're not protecting the assets of the township.
I know, Gary told him to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Gary picked a
And
spot,
that's a huge
and
mistake.
this is where I want it, and this is where he put it. So I don't care if we tear it out, or if it gets washed away in a flood, we're still paying Steve for it, I don't know why we would make them wait
Yeah.
another month.
I think, I agree with that.
Okay, Camille made the motion, Steve seconded it. Getzinger,
No,
Gator,
No?
Nickel,
To not pay the bill?
to not pay bill.
No.
No, you're missing the point. You're
You-
you're
You
asking,
have to
the
vote,
motion.
you have to vote yes to not pay the bill.
Oh, yes, I apologize, yes.
Okay, all right,
I apologize.
all right, that's why you know Finley,
yes.
motion carried.
no.
I make a motion to pay the bills as presented.
I'll second.
That's what just happened.
No, there's
No, no.
actually 3 no's, Mary.
I
The
understand
clerk
that, but what
misspoke.
happened was if you vote no against paying those bills, okay, never mind.
I voted
So
no against
J-
paying the
John
bills
made-
less than $10,000
But you made a motion to pay the bills as presented.
as presented.
Right. Finley,
No.
Getzinger,
Yes.
Swag, yes. Gator,
Yep.
Nickel.
No.
Okay. Public comments.
I have one. So the board just decided to take and pay a bill. We're not gonna keep beating a dead horse to it, but I am gonna just emphasize that you just went against a motion that was carried by the board unanimously last month and did not suffice based upon the motion, and it was just taken and paid. So now this board has decided not to protect the community assets, but we have gone after multiple people about small odds and ends and how they have not taken and disposed of them properly. So just let that sink in for everybody.
Maybe we should have a discussion with the
And
Parks
that was
Director to do
corrected.
that.
After that, the
What?
form was filled out
Gary
and
not
brought.
talking.
You know,
He knows what happened.
He knows, yeah.
I'm just saying that would be consistent with the example.
He's known what he's done for a couple of months. Correspondence and information. Okay. Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Are you ready for the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for having me tonight. Sorry I cannot be there in person, obviously, due to COVID and our firm restrictions. We were asked to present remotely if at all possible, so I appreciate the flexibility that the township gave for me to present this way. I provided a presentation slide deck to the board, so I'm going to walk through that. First of all, just our agenda items for tonight. I have a few board communications. I'm going to discuss the financial results of the township for the March 31st, 2020 audit. Talk quickly about some upcoming accounting pronouncements and then answer any questions. My name is Daniel Clark. I'm the principal on the audit from the Raymond Group, and we are the audit firm that audits the annual books of the township each year. So, on the first agenda item, I have a few board communications. One of which is we plan on issuing an unmodified opinion on the March 31st, 2020 financial statements, which is exactly what you're looking for. That's the highest standard in which a financial statement can achieve. We're also asked to communicate whether any new accounting policies were adopted during the current fiscal year, and there were none this year. There were supposed to be a couple that may have affected the financial statements, but due to COVID, there was a delay in implementation, so those were all pushed off one year, and I'll talk about that at the end of the slide deck. Number 3, we're asked to communicate that we assess management's estimates, which include depreciation expense. It includes numbers that go into calculating the pension liability, and we assess those and deem those all reasonable. We're also asked to let you know if we encountered any difficulties during the audit, and we are pleased to say we did not. Obviously, under the current situation, it was a bit challenging. We were doing the audit remotely, which was new this year, which did delay the finalization of this by a few more weeks than we had hoped. But we appreciate the staff's help, Mary and Camille, and all their efforts in getting us information all electronically. So we want to thank them for their efforts in getting this completed by the September 30th deadline, which is 6 months after your year end. We're also asked to communicate whether there were any corrected or uncorrected misstatements that were material, and there were none this year. So there will not be a finding similar to last year. We had a finding for material adjustments, and we did not find any this year, so we were able to remove that finding from last year. We did note one material weakness, which was a repeat from last year, and one other matter, which was also a repeat from last year. If you recall, you have construction bond and development fee agency accounts, and last year we were unable to reconcile those directly from the subledger to the books. And again, this year that was a problem, so we stated that is a material weakness in that reconciliation process. So I know that the township worked to begin trying to get that to reconcile, but they have some work yet to do to complete that. Also, there are some very old amounts in there that potentially did not have support for them. So again, a finding related to making sure all those balances yet to be paid and to be paid have support, and that reconciles to the general ledger. And then the only other matter that we noted, last year there was a bid for a piece of equipment, and there was not documentation for which showed that it could waive the bidding process. We did follow up on that finding, and there was no additional information provided, so we did just include that as a comment from last year that situation, although it did not happen again in 2020, there was no additional information provided to actually clear that finding.
The fire engine.
And please feel free to stop me if you have questions, and I'm in the middle of this presentation as well. So if there are none at this point, I can move on to the financial status of the township.
Anybody?
Nope.
So if you
No.
go to-
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so if you go to slide 5, this is your assets and your deferred outflows. At year end, you had $5.5 million in assets compared to $4.8 million last year. An increase of just over $700,000. And you'll see the biggest change there, you had an increase of cash of just over $200,000, and that was a result of increased taxes collected, as well as increased charges for services, mostly in the emergency service fund. And then you'll also notice your capital assets increased $435,000. That was mostly related to the new fire truck that was purchased during the year. If you go to slide 6, this is the liability and deferred inflow side of things. So you'll see your total liabilities at year end went from $610,000 this year compared to last year, $236,000. You'll see those increased $374,000. Most of that related to the increase in your long-term debt. Again, that's related to the fire truck that was financed. So your debt also increased by $336,000. Slide 7 is your net position for your equity, so your assets minus your liabilities, and that is split into 3 different buckets. You have your net investment and capital assets. So all those items that are capitalized and depreciated over their useful life made up about 55% of your equity. About 21% of your equity was related to restricted dollars, so related to your pension and related to your emergency services fund. And then almost 25% of your equity was unrestricted, so those dollars that could be used for general operations. restricted dollars went from 828,000 at year end to just over $1 million at year end. Slide 9 is a picture of your income statement at the entity-wide level, so all funds. You had just under $2.5 million in revenue in 2020 compared to 2.1 million in 19, so increase of about 300,000. And again, that mostly relates to increased taxes and increased charges for services. Your expenses went from just over 2 million to $2.1 million, and you'll see the last 3 years, your revenue has exceeded your expenses in each of those years, which is exactly what you want to see, that you're not overspending and able to develop a little bit of a cushion. Slide 10 is your 3 major revenue line items. So that top line are your taxes. You had $1.3 million in taxes last year, and you had just over $1.4 million in tax collections for 2020. That middle line, that are your intergovernmental grants and your state revenue. You had just over 400,000 last year, or sorry, just over 400,000 last year, and that dropped a little bit to just under 400,000 this year. That bottom line are your charges for services, as we discussed. That went from 232,000 to 360,000, and that was a result of increased charges for services, mostly in the emergency services fund. Just 2 more slides, and this relates directly to general fund. So obviously this is the fund in which all your general operations and revenue are charged to. This year you had 770,000 in revenue compared to 656,000 last year, so an increase of about 120,000. That mostly relates to your increase in tax collection. And your expenses went from 750,000 this year from $637,000 last year. You'll see in this graph, the last 2 years your revenue have exceeded your expenses, but 2 years ago, your expenses were just over your revenue, but still a very healthy trend there. And then the last financial result tab relates to your general fund coverage ratio, and what this represents is how many months of general fund expenditures are sitting in your fund balance. So at the end of 2020, you had just under 19 months of expenses sitting in your fund balance. So if the township stopped collecting $1 in the general fund, you'd technically be able to operate for about 19 months. It's down a little bit from last year, from about 21 months, but it's up from 2 years ago, which was just over 17 months. So again, a very healthy number. Obviously, we get concerned if this goes below 3 months, because then cash flow becomes an issue. So you are well above the floor here, and I would say that this is a very healthy number, especially compared to other communities that we audit. And then the last agenda item, we just want to talk about a couple of upcoming accounting pronouncements, and these are implemented staggered over the next 3 years. The ones that affect next year are GASB 83 and GASB 84. GASB 84 would actually have been implemented this year, but due to COVID, that was delayed, and all these were delayed 1 year. The only one on here that might have an effect on your financial statement presentation is going to be the fiduciary activities, GASB 84 and GASB 87. And obviously, as those become applicable, we will discuss those with the mayor and Camille and the township, and make sure that those are represented properly in your financial statements. With that, I can open it up for any questions.
I don't have any. Sounds good. Good
Yeah,
job.
that's-
Thank you, Daniel.
Good job.
Definitely an improvement, absolutely.
Yeah, the only other thing I will mention is what was just mentioned in improvement. Last year we had multiple different management letter recommendations, and all of them have been addressed, other than the bidding item, but there was probably 4 or 5 different items that were corrected from last year. So you went from 4 or 5 different comments to one management letter comment, and you went from 2 material findings to 1. So again, an improvement on all levels. So
Nope, very good. You're not fading out on us, are you?
We lost them.
Are you still there, Daniel?
can you hear me?
Yep, I can. All right.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay. Nope, it seems like
Yes.
everybody has their questions answered. Thank you very much for chiming in today. I'm glad this worked better than I thought it was going to. This electronic communication is important, but
Yes. Yeah,
new.
yeah, it can be cumbersome, but
Oh, it's out again.
Okay.
All right, well,
That's it.
Well, thank you, Daniel. You have a great rest of the night.
you're welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. That worked pleasantly surprising once I
It
actually
did.
got it turned on.
Yes.
Okay. Fire Department, Chief?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Fair report for the month of August. We responded to 89 EMS calls, 15 fire totaling 104. We provided aid 7 times and received aid once. A very interesting month that passed us by. Because of COVID, we weren't able to do your traditional swearing in of 4 new firefighters. But I would like to welcome part-timer Joseph Pellerito. He's new to the fire industry, but he's been a paramedic for 3 years. 3 full-timers are Matthew Hanna, Brandon Heath, and Eric Franchetti. Now we are fully staffed with 9 full-time people, and what's very interesting about these 3 individuals is they bring 45 years of experience to us. They're all coming from other departments, which is a great opportunity for Armada. The other thing that happened was, exciting month was our grants. So Armada Township Fire Department put in for 3 grants through FEMA through Assistance to Firefighter Grants. One we mentioned last meeting was for the Health and Wellness Program, which totaled $46,000. That's to establish a wellness program, to purchase some commercial exercise equipment, to make sure we have fit, healthy firefighters. The other one we got was a grant for personal protection equipment, which is a special grant through AFG. And that was, the total award on that was $2,943. That will buy us some personal protective equipment for response to COVID-type patients. The last one, which was a significant one, was for a water tanker pumper in the amount of $428,451. This will replace our 1997 water truck that is underpowered and inadequate for our operations. So our awards are close to $500,000 this year, which is remarkable, saying the entire country got $750 million. Armada got $500,000 of that. I want to make a very special thanks to Fire Marshal Kevin Cannell. He worked very hard in acquiring these grants.
Great.
Any questions?
Good work.
Questions?
Nope.
That's it.
thank you.
I did do a updated official ordinance report.
Does anybody else have it?
No, I didn't get one, Nick, and I didn't update mine.
So you don't have one?
Or you did not?
Oh, I thought you
did
said
not.
you
Yeah,
did.
No, I
I sure
did
did
not.
too, yeah.
Planning Commission?
Yes, they had 2 items. We had we ended up making it a pet crematory. The motion was to go to public hearing based upon Planning Commission. So next month, I believe that all the information will be going out in all the correct areas that it needs to go to for the October meeting, for that to come, obviously to go for public hearing to then become an ordinance Shipping containers were tabled. Again, the planner was going to bring more additional information. Several planning commission members had confusion. I think we talked about it for a good 45 minutes, I think at least, Randy, didn't we? And that's what we ended up doing, to bring it back next month. Those are the only items that we had.
That's it. Okay, our building department, for August, we issued a permit for a pole barn, one for an addition miscellaneous, 2 homes, 2 commercial permits, 1 pool, 12 electrical permits, 16 mechanical permits, and 4 plumbing permits. So there were a total of 39 permits issued with 73 building inspections. I haven't heard from Comag PDR.
No PDR
Okay.
report.
Our Parks and Recreation, the report that Gary turned in was our baseball, softball seasons continue with practice on 2 of the 3 softball and 2 to 3 softball tournaments scheduled for September and October. Since school sports are still in question to play in the fall, the baseball, softball, recreational leagues, and moving forward will continue to practice and play. The pavilion had 2 birthday parties and 1 graduation party scheduled. The Armada Junior Tigers practice and meetings. Jake is to maintain the restrooms on Fridays. The skate park trash has not been an issue in August. Upgrades to the 2020 still in process. Auto door locks for the restrooms. Diamond dust for the North Township field. Cross excavating red clay for the South Township field and the East Township field. AVA to supply a quote. Additional picnic tables to replace the wood tables. Replace park entrance with concrete. Long-term goal. But that's the approach into the park to get rid of the gravel. Thank you, Gary. Water and sewer, we got nothing.
Was the water, the utility committee disbanded?
I don't think we've ever made a motion for that, but
Well, then I don't understand why Jim is asking for what's going on, and you say, I'm working on a couple of angles with both annexation requests and Hidden River, and nothing new to report. When did that change?
I guess technically it didn't. At the last meeting, the supervisor had made it clear that he was pursuing a few avenues. I, quite honestly, Trustee Nicola and I haven't met. After the letters went out to Romeo and Bruce, we have not received any follow-up, so I have nothing to report. Because the supervisor had brought up some items that he was discussing, I was inquiring if he had made any progress.
So in other words, a board motion doesn't matter again. Okay.
McComb Orchard Trail, I've heard nothing.
Nothing.
But I do know the signs are up. I believe all of them, the new
Oh, they put new
stop
signs
signs
up?
and stuff.
On the trail, I'll tell you what, they don't work. Boy, those people are coming off that trail like crazy. Whew. There was a tandem bike that came up on Armada Ridge, just about the front of my truck. That was kind of scary. I know they're probably hard to stop, but maybe give yourself 50 feet and get off and walk. But good thing I go slow when I come up to those, by the way.
I didn't receive a report from Donna.
I know, but they've been meeting off location. They're doing lunches. I know they've been doing some get-togethers at the pavilion at the park, so they're spending their time doing the best they can to stay active. Treasurer's report, please.
As you can tell, that all of my bank reconciliations have been done, completed on time, and they all match the general ledger.
Motion to receive and file reports as presented.
Is there support?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, filed. Letter of notification for emergency services. Been working with Chief Gracci, the Fire Chiefs Association, and our attorney on putting together a letter to Supervisor Green in Richmond Township, explaining our position with fire services and also our position with the use of the Armada Village water system for emergency services in Richmond Township. This is a discussion draft for the board to go through. We'd like to get it to Ms. Greenia as soon as possible. If the board doesn't have objections to the letter, we've already made one mutual aid run called in by Memphis on August 15th. It was a low incident situation, but again, we can't send our fire department out at no cost, or can, the village taxpayers really carry the burden of maintaining a water system so people can fill their trucks up. Fire Chiefs Association made it clear that townships and fire departments need to make individual decisions as to what they're going to do going forward. I think it's in our best interest to adhere to the proposed charges that the Macomb Fire Chiefs Association has put out. It's a lesser of two evils. There's another schedule that's done by FEMA, which is not as lucrative or not as nice as this one. And then they'll need to become a water customer of the village. Like all the rest of our water customers in the village, they'll have to pay their quarterly charge, and that'll give them up to 5,000 gallons a quarter, and if they use over that, there's a commodity charge, et cetera, and so that doesn't keep them from having the access to the most important part of firefighting, which is the water. Outside of the firefighter chief, I apologize. That's
So it isn't that they're still not gonna get service, they're just gonna have to pay for it.
Yep, the chief will track the hours, the equipment, everything that's used, and even damage to the equipment, whatnot. There's a formula and a system that's a little bit more cumbersome in management, but I don't believe that we're in a position to provide free fire service.
Make a motion to send Supervisor Greenia the letter as presented.
I'll support that.
Well, it's good that they're gonna at least know now that there was.
Where they stand.
Where they stand, I mean, I know where I did, I think people certainly put words in my mouth and tried to say what I was thinking when that was not true, that I did not want to provide service to Richmond Township, which was false information. I certainly wanted them to, but I didn't want our taxpayers to be at the mercy of paying for everything up front and Richmond Township not paying for anything, but I'm glad we got that clear, right?
Yep, we got it all straightened out. Now we're standing our ground. Again, they're more than welcome to utilize their services for the same rate as our taxpayers pay, and they'll get 24/7 prepared service.
Getzinger?
Yes.
Finley?
Yes.
Nickel?
Yep.
Sway? Yes. Peter?
Yes. Thank you. I will get that off to Supervisor Greenia. Thank you for your help with that, Chief, and for getting me involved with the Fire Chiefs Association to help with some guidance. And then we have
The MERS.
MERS,
Yep.
yes.
I talked to Andy again. I've got some changes. We're not making any changes to our plan, but on page 3 of page 6, where it has type of leave at the bottom, at first I had service credit excluded. It should be granted, should be included, because that's per their contract. So that's a change. And then also on page 4 of 6, box 1 needed to be checked because of their overtime that they have. It includes their base wages plus their overtime.
On page 4 of 6?
Page 4 of 6. It would be the middle box, box 1, wages. And then, that was it. And I changed the date to September 9th.
Is this a change from what?
There's no, we're not changing anything in their contract. It's just, this is requested by MERS now.
It's just,
So we have to follow what's in our contract, so it matches what we're submitting.
were we already doing this, and now they
Yes.
just have a
Now they
different
have a-
form
yeah.
that we're essentially formally?
This is from them. It's a formality, and it'll be taking place January 1st of 2021.
Did our attorney look at this at all, just to make sure that everything complied?
No.
This is a retirement,
I mean, I had Andy look at it, and he's very well versed in the MERS.
but I mean, it's a retirement program
It's a retirement program.
with the firefighters, and it is in their contract. I think I don't know why the changes were made, other than to define that it was coming from their wages. If you look back at page 4 or 6, defined benefit, the DB hybrid plan adopting agreement addendum, you have to either, you know, if it's coming from one, all the regular wages included, because we don't include their overtime.
You include their regular overtime, their
Yeah.
mandatory overtime.
Right, but,
Yes.
but not their come back, paid on
No.
call shifts and
No.
stuff like that,
No,
so,
no.
so it's not based on their gross wages. So I think they just need that, MERS needs that defined as to what part of the wages you're taking the money
Right.
out, more than anything.
Right. So I'll make a motion to adopt the MERS defined benefit and DB hybrid plan adoption agreement addendum dated September 9th, 2020 as amended, and to have Supervisor Patrick sign agreement via DocuSign as required by MERS.
Support?
Again, I'm just due diligence asking why
Yeah, why did this come up?
would
Because
we just not?
That's from MERS.
If we
MERS
already
is the
have
one that's
MERS now,
instituting this.
we already
It
have
came from
MERS
them.
now. Are they already taking it out of all their wages, for example, right now?
I already do that. I do 6% of the
Yeah,
personnel and 6.6 for the township. I have a spreadsheet that I do.
I think what MERS is doing is no different than what our auditor's doing. There's changes made to the accounting principles and practices.
Because there's no actual changes to the plan. This is just a form where they're
It's a
maybe having to
verification of what we
verify?
have,
Okay,
yes.
that's okay.
Yeah.
It seemed they were just defining what
Maybe
wages.
change the name of how it's broken out, so you need to reconfirm.
Patrick,
Yes.
Nickel,
No.
Getzinger,
Yes.
Swack, yes, Finley.
Yes.
Okay, we have hazard pay, Grant, chief?
Ladies and gentlemen, the legislature passed a law that put $100 million aside for hazard pay for first responders. Who qualifies for that is police, corrections officers, fire, EMS personnel, and airport security. And it was put out as a first come, first served. So if you applied for it and got in early, they would provide the reimbursement for hazard pay. And what they have allowed is up to $1,000 reimbursement per employee for the period of COVID response. I apologize getting it late to you. I've been waiting for a couple weeks to get some information from Treasury Department. The biggest question I have is the township on the hook for the FICA pay? And the answer to that is yes. So with approval of this, it will cost the fire department out of their budget $1,224. The other thing is we sat down and figured out what is appropriate. So they allow $1,000 per employee. Well, there's a lot of people in the state of Michigan that are applying for that, and I wanted to be fair to everybody. I didn't want to grab all this money. So we put like a reward system in place. So the more people work, the more they were rewarded with that, with $1,000. If they work just a very little bit, it was a $500 bonus. If they just came in for a couple call-ins, not often, we made it at $250. I threw it by a couple of the guys in with that's fair. The way this is this is a reimbursement. So once we get notified of an award, then we would make that payment to the employees and then get reimbursed. The payment has to be done by September 30th, but the awards are going to be out before that. If you do approve this, I ask you to approve it pending award of this grant. Do you have any questions so far?
You have 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah, and even on their website themselves, they were supposed to roll this out on the 24th, and they said it hasn't happened yet. I did get an email from them, and I forwarded it, and they said they should have this out
Before the 24th?
before the 30th of that date's due. And without award by the 30th,
Okay,
would
so
be
that's
a
my
month.
question. If you do it that way, you have a payroll of every other week. to be
It would
able,
a special
It'll be a
payroll.
special payroll.
is it going to be put on a payroll
Yes,
type thing?
yes.
Because you're gonna be pulling FICA out.
I have a separate line item for that.
Do you have it under bonuses as a separate line item?
We have, when we established the COVID, we
Under
did two separate
personnel.
lines, one for personnel and one for stuff. And so we could use that personnel as, an
But this is a
expense
different
that.
kind of, this is a different kind of grant. Don't you think that should be put under?
It's still under the COVID umbrella. It's still under CARES Act money, but it's not the CARES Act money that we're already
That's what I'm
set
saying.
aside
It's
for it.
completely.
It's-
And so my other concern is that since you only have this amount of time,
Yep.
and you cannot pay anybody until you get that authorization, you're talking days real quick.
Potentially. The state knows that everybody's waiting on this. They, in their email flat out admitted, yes, they're behind. They made it clear that we'll have notification before that date. And if we don't get notification before that date, that's why I'm asking this motion to be upon notification of the award, then we make the payment to them.
Okay.
I want the
It's gonna be
safety
tight.
It's gonna be, yeah.
Could they possibly extend it, the
They
date?
could extend it, and
of
that's
course.
why, they may extend the timeline.
My personal thought is that it should go in a completely different line because it's a completely different grant than anything that you're getting CARES, because CARES is coming from a whole nother bucket.
It's still under the CARES Act
I understand that.
money, but it's not the money from the county.
Right, because you explained it to me that it's not going to hamper what you're getting from that other amount by getting
Correct.
this.
Yes.
That's
It's
why I
freestanding.
just think you
think
need to
the-
pull separately.
You think the revenue should be separate or the expense?
It has to both,
Both.
both, because you have to offset one with the other, so they have to correlate. But now you've got the money coming in for your FICA. Ooh, that's gonna be challenging. Okay, I'll make a motion that if you get it, right? That's what you want the motion to say, right?
Pending award.
Pending award. Okay, so,
I got one right now.
okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve first responders hazard pay totaling $16,000 plus FICA cost as itemized and payment to employees by September 30th, 2020, pending award notification approval for grant reimbursement.
Okay, in that motion, is there a stipulation, because it didn't sound like there was a stipulation, that 1,224 is not coming from that grant? Because that is the big deal, bookwork-wise anyway. That is what the township is going to pay for,
That would be our obligation, right?
yes.
You're saying
Yeah.
a
And so
motion should-
basically, what our motion is that we're taking that money out. It's more than just accepting that grant. Do you know what I'm saying?
You gotta modify it to say the township
So-
will pay the.
Amended to,
With the township's
With-
obligation of $1,224.
okay, that's my motion.
And I'll second that.
All right. Nichol,
Yes.
Finley,
Yes.
Getzner,
Yes.
Swag, yes, Parrot.
Okay, we're going to the cooperative.
Cooperative. So the fire department, a lot of the stuff the fire department buys is expensive. Under the current policy of the township, there's two ways we can purchase these expensive items. We can go out for RFP, a solicited bid process, or for part of a co-op or consortium, we can purchase things that way. What a co-op is a pool of municipalities that come together, get bids on an item, so we kind of share the expense of a smaller community. There's two very large co-ops in the country. One is the Houston Galveston Area Council, which is known as HGAC, and the other one is known as Sourcewell. If you go under HGAC, there's probably, I think it was 50 municipalities in the state that belong to it. If you go under Sourcewell, I don't know of any that don't. Sourcewell is very unique too, because it's also, like churches can join, schools can join, municipalities can join. I was trying to go through to count them, and it was just, everyone in Michigan seems to be part of Sourcewell. So I'm hoping to get permission to join these, because what that will give us is the ability to purchase things. One of the biggest things I'm looking to purchase potentially through this organization is the fire truck. Fire trucks are, both organizations have that. The problem with HGAC is that's the only thing they charge for is a fire truck. So we wouldn't be going that route, we'd be going more the source well. But what happens is that all these big manufacturers go to source well and provide a bid based on selling, 1,000 fire trucks or 100 fire trucks. So instead of Armada going in and saying we're buying one, we get the buying power of several, and it still conforms with the policy. None of these purchases will be done without board's approval as well. So it still has to be brought to the board for approval. But this gives not only the fire department, but the township ability to purchase things under large co-op pricing.
No different than the farmers use it for co-op for grain and.
Yes, sir.
This, when I looked this up, this HGAC, it says it advertises in solicitations as required by state, and it emphasizes Texas.
They are
Is
based out of
that,
Texas.
yes, because they're based
Yes.
out of Texas.
Yep.
Does that conflict with Michigan law?
There's a lot of organizations that do. I know, like Sterling Heights uses it, St. Clair Shores uses it. We purchased an ambulance through it. It was all in compliance with it.
Okay, it was just, it was highlighted, that's why
Yeah.
it caught my eye.
I'll make a motion to have the Township of Armada enter into membership agreements with both HGAC and Sourcewell.
I'll second. This would be an example of one way that would satisfy the auditor's, major concern about
Definitely,
competitive
yes,
bidding, so.
Yes,
Getzinger?
Yes.
Finley?
yes.
Swyaki, yes. Nichol?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes. Thank you, Chief. Now we'll move on to the assessing annual services. Tom, again, I made the board aware last month that he's asked for a 1.9% increase, which would change his monthly fees from $3,246 to $3,308. I would like to make a motion to entertain Tom's request for his contract that it go up by 1.9% to a cost of $3,308 per month.
I'll second that. Nichol?
Yes.
Swyaki, yes. Finley?
Yes.
Getzinger?
Yes.
Peter?
Thank you, yes. Motion to close the hall on November 3rd?
Yes, we are going to do our AV county board here, and I'd like them to start like early, like around 11, 12 o'clock, and no one should be in the hall.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to close the township hall on November 3rd for the general election.
Support?
I just have a question just in terms of on the building side. What would, since that's a Tuesday, would there still be, or would that be completely closed as well too?
And we'll-
And what I mean by that is that, for example, the township is closed on Friday. Mel won't do an inspection on Friday because the township hall is
Right.
closed. Would he still be able to perform, if I called an inspection in Monday, you would call it
It'll
in
be
24
Tuesday.
hours?
Yeah, we
Still do
wouldn't,
Tuesday,
the
yeah.
inspections, field inspections
Yeah.
would still happen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm just asking to clarify.
Yes.
Because, I
Yep.
mean, it's not just
That's
me,
a
but
good
anybody
question.
that's,
Yeah. No.
a contractor
Right.
would
And we'll tell Christine,
certainly
let
not
them know.
wanna know that we can't
Do business.
do business or get that because of that,
Right.
that particular day. I
Yes.
get Fridays, cause Fridays is the day that the hall is closed,
Yeah.
every Friday, but as
Nope,
long as
good
we can
point.
still
Yep.
have that.
Yep. Good perspective.
All right. Peter?
Yep.
Nichol?
Yes, so you'll
Fin-
let the building department know then
Yeah.
about it? Okay.
Finley?
Yes.
Getzinger?
Yes.
Swyaki, yes.
Okay. I'll move on to the request from Hidden River, actually it's from Statewide Management LLC about the Hidden River subdivision. Mike has asked that we send a letter, specifically stating that the township has no ability to provide, sewer services. I can't necessarily say that we can't provide water services because we can. So, I would like to send a letter, to Statewide Management LLC addressing Mr. DeMille's request, stating that the Township of Armada is not in a position to provide sewer to his subdivision.
I guess if I could break the rules for a moment here, because there's no second, but so are you saying that you received correspondence from Bruce Township that they're not interested in 425? Because we haven't seen anything.
That's what Bruce Township has something to offer per se, and Romeo has something to offer and Washington has something. Armada Township doesn't have the ability to provide sewer services. He's asking Armada Township to say, we can't provide. We can't provide.
Well, he
sewer.
specifically references 425 agreements in the letter. So I feel that if we were to send a letter, that would imply to Mr. DeMille that the township is no longer pursuing 425 with Bruce Township.
And again, Bruce Township has to pursue the 425.
We have sent them a letter, which the treasurer brought up. We have heard no correspondence. You have heard no correspondence. I have heard no correspondence from their attorney or the township itself. And it may be worth following up to see. The last I had heard, they were going to have a closed session meeting to discuss legalities of that. And with COVID, maybe that's delayed all this. I don't know, but I think until we've heard something, I wouldn't be comfortable sending a letter. And maybe it's worth pursuing. So I guess as far as pursuing discussions further with Bruce Township.
Okay, good.
Hey, John, I got a question on that. When that came in front of the planning commission for the site plan, it was on the condition of water and sewer. If the township wasn't able to have water and sewer there, the existing plan that was there before, which he can still build there, he just can't build as many houses.
Right.
That's the plan that it was gonna go to, so if you guys can't accept water and sewer, then the plan has to go back to the original state,
If we can't provide water, so,
if we can't provide water.
right.
So he does have
He
a
does.
source to still build there.
Well, he has an option.
Just can't build as many houses. So it's not saying that you have to have water and sewer.
He does have water. Do you recall if that restriction, is that typically based on the sewer side of things or the water side of things? As far as
It
Sewer
said both.
side, because you can have the
the
water.
fields?
But the septic field is what counts for the
I think there
amount
were,
of houses, so
Okay.
he would have to have less houses on a piece of
I
land.
think there were 16 or 18 sites, and what got this whole thing started back in '09 was it when Mr. Finkelstein owned the property. He wanted to develop it, but 6 of the properties don't perk, and you need more than an acre to have well and septic. So that's why it was, there were larger lots, and so he went to Bruce Township and asked if he could get sewer, because at that time, he was just trying to put the other 6 homes on the 6 open lots instead of just having open land. Since then, because nothing happened, he sold the property, and Mr. DeMille came in with water and sewer. He could put 2.75 homes per acre based on water and sewer, as an opposed, so he could put in a 56 person senior community per se, a 56 dwelling senior community per se, as an opposed to 16 lots or 18 lots with 6 that don't perk. So that's how it started. That's how the whole thing started.
Yep.
I'll second your motion so that we can vote on it. Getzner?
No.
Nickel?
No.
Swag, Finley?
No.
Parrot?
I agree. Nope. Thank you. The subcommittee for high-speed internet. It was, we were approached last month by Sarah, Chris, and Sean to put together a subcommittee. The board wanted to make it official, and so Sarah's back. Did you want to say anything about the proposed committee, or?
I don't really have a whole lot to say other than we're anxious to get moving and just explore and see what we can come up with. It's, obviously, it's 2020, not just the worst year in history, but, there's no reason that people cannot have internet access. They've got it in the UP, they've got it in Grayling and Gaylord, but we don't have it in Armada. And students are doing more online work, people are working from home more. It's very vital. It was, an important thing to have before, but it's absolutely vital with the way things have been for the last 6 months. And we're anxious to get moving and see what we can do.
Yeah, the problem is getting it here. It's like we don't deny anybody or anything. I know AT&T's been working on something. We're still waiting to hear from the Comcast grant too, so.
Right.
Well, I can't, see that it would hurt. I'd like to make
Yeah.
a motion to allow Sarah Murray and Chris Martin and Sean Weber to put together a subcommittee to research avenues for internet, Wi-Fi of any type, and bring their findings back to the board.
Yes, absolutely would be reported back to the board.
I'll second that.
I think it's great, and I appreciate you guys doing that. I know, as Mary had said, there is a grant, we're still waiting from Comcast. I'm not too optimistic at this point. I know that,
They lied to me 2 years ago, so.
yeah, and I know 2 years ago, I made a lot of phone calls to Charter and all these companies, and unfortunately, they don't seem interested. But I'm far from an expert. I know you guys have more experience with that, and seem very motivated, so I'm glad that you're, hopefully you can find something. Now, just as a note, my family, we were able to get recently, it's like a mobile hotspot from AT&T that we pay monthly for, so we actually didn't have internet until we had to get it for school recently, finally.
Okay, I was looking at some stuff online a few days ago, actually, and I found some things. Before we bought our property, I called Comcast to see if they were in the area and whatever, and supposedly, yeah, they were, so we went ahead, bought the property, built the house, blah, blah, blah. I called them before we were ready to move in, said, okay, go run your lines together, put it up, and, oh, we don't service that area. So, I have been fortunate enough to have Solveras. That was kind of a iffy situation because they at first couldn't get a signal, and I said, well, I'll chop down trees, you just tell me what I gotta do, because I have to have it. And I was able to get it, so I'm fortunate in that regard, but, a neighbor across the street is not able to get it because of the elevation of his home and his trees and whatever, and, so it's a touch and go, and it's just not right that people don't have the access if they want it.
We just have to find out what options are out there.
Right.
Yeah, and one last comment, again, I'm far from an expert, but I know they are starting to mount them on telephone poles, so it's more like repeaters wise.
Boosters, boosters,
Yeah, and so
jumpers.
I know that they're close, sometimes that you can get that in Richmond at 5G, I
Matter
think,
of fact, Chris Martin is very versed in the,
'cause yeah.
big time.
So,
Yeah, and I found some other things
Every 2.5
online.
miles, they
Even
put
my
in
cell
a jumper.
service, I have terrible cell service at my house. And Verizon said, oh yeah, we have a tower right there, but you're right, it's not servicing you well. You can buy this booster, and I'm like, oh, thanks.
You just gotta
So-
just climb in a tree and hold the coat hanger in your mouth and talk at the same time.
So if I wouldn't fall on my head, I'd want to try it. But,
Well,
yeah,
thank
this
you.
is great. Thank you.
Is that my motion?
Yes.
So,
Getzner,
yes,
Nickel,
Yes.
Spike, yes, Finley,
Yes.
Carrick.
yes, thank you very much. Now we have the, ball field mix. Looks like our Maida Little League was quoted to our Maida Little League from Phoenix, Stone Company. It's the, Washington ball mix. It's, a good red clay. Looks like they want $2,024. Did we split that with ABA before?
ABA, yes, yes, we did.
Okay, is it a 50-50 thing? Is that what they're asking for, or?
I think it was more than that. This is all he sent me.
That's the,
That's
now,
all.
what about the actual putting it down? Or is that separate, or is that just part of the budget?
I remember Edgar,
and
Or
I
is
think
it donation?
in the
Editor
Parks
just did it.
report, it talked
I don't
about
think he charged
cost,
us.
didn't it? So, yeah, I wondered that myself.
No, is that gonna be the additional?
Nope.
Do they, if it's just topping, let's see, it's 20, what's the, it doesn't say the units, is it 22 yards or
No,
tons?
22,
Nine-
should be 22 tons typically.
So that's not that much material, maybe they plan to spread it. Well, it did say cross on there, so. And you're, I guess,
actually, it says, diamond dust for North Township Field, cross excavating. They was gonna have cross excavating doing that. It doesn't say anything about cross excavating doing the clay,
No.
just to be clear.
oh, okay.
So we'd have an additional bill, or is that just?
I'm
No, we would
sus-
just pay the
I'm
2024,
suspecting-
it'd be up to them to have it spread.
Yeah, we never, yeah,
I
we
think they're
didn't.
gonna do that with volunteers,
Right.
because that's,
The
if
materials
that's
only.
22 tons, that's not, you know,
Oh.
a variable amount. And so as the supervisor said, what is the amount that we are discussing here, or is the township
Gary brought
paying?
it up for $2,000, the bill is 2024.
2,145.
And
No, we're
historically-
tax exempt,
sorry,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. tax exempt.
Historically, we've paid 50%, and this time we're paying the majority of it.
Well,
That's all.
I know that, our high school, junior varsity plays on one of the diamonds. That's for certain, and, again, they're, you know, the ball fields are a pretty significantly
We
important
could-
part, so I'd suggest is, if they're gonna install it, you know, buy the material for them and let them install it.
I guess I'll make that motion to approve the expenditure of 2024 for the Washington Ball Mix from Phoenix Stone Company, as they are the only supplier for the materials.
Sole source.
I was just saying,
Materials only,
I was just saying materials only.
materials only.
I'll support that.
Nickel? Oh.
If I may, I have searched around for material, and I agree that this is the only company that has the right findings and stuff that I was able to find in my search for a different issue. So
The red clays, yep.
Nickel?
Yes.
Finley?
Yes.
Swag, yes. Getzinger?
yes,
Parrot?
Yes. Board member comments, trustee Getson?
I follow up on that pavilion. I get trustee Nichols' comments, but I felt like we're not, just to say, to keep making the same argument but not actually providing any solution. I feel like we're responsible, so that's the reason that I felt that we should move forward and pay the bill. It's not a significant amount of money. As far as the audit, I think that it went very well, and so I want to commend the clerk and the treasurer for their efforts. I know it's significantly in your hands, and so thank you for continuing to follow the rules and guidelines that we need to make sure we're responsible and protecting the township. And I also want to say congratulations and thanks to the fire department and specifically the fire marshal for his efforts on those grants. I think that's great as well, so that's it.
Treasurer Finley?
Yes, Mary and I did work very hard on that audit, and it was one of the best we've had in many, many years. And we only had one write-up, and that had to do with the building department, with the balancing it to the general fund. And on March 23rd, you sent an email to the full board and to the building department and said, once payroll is complete, please take the files that are needed to be addressed from planning home with you to continue working on them from home to get them in order prior to the audit. And for being off 6 weeks, it's very sad that we didn't have a 100% perfect audit, because I think it should have been, my opinion.
Clerk Swayacki?
Did you forget me?
Yeah.
Oh, Nickel?
I'm sorry.
Steve?
Trustee.
I'd like, yeah, no, I'm just, wait, basically. Yes, congratulations to the new 4 firefighters. I think that's great. I know for a while there, when I was first running, it was certainly an issue, trying to keep firefighters here, and now we've got 4 new ones again, so I think that's great. I think it's a testament to the force that we have right now and to literally those guys here. Also, again, with the grants, I think it's phenomenal, $500,000. That's pretty great to be able to get that kind of, support here. My last item is beginning of the year, for those of you that don't know, myself, trustee Getzinger, clerk Swayacki, treasurer Finley were brought into litigation by Robin Spalding and supervisor Patrick based on the fact that they felt that we had violated the Open Meetings Act. The judge ruled that the 4 board members did not violate the Open Meetings Act. We have been recently notified by our attorney that the 2 plaintiffs have decided to appeal. We have also been told that this would take an additional 18 months with the appeal process. In the end, there's a possibility that monetary funds can be awarded to the plaintiffs if the appeal is overturned. The township would be liable for that payout. It's, you know, with what happened, they have the right to be able to do that, but I think it's fair that people know what's going on here, that don't know what's going on. And again, we were found by a judge that we were not in violation of the Open Meetings Act.
Didn't he do the same thing to you two that he's doing?
This is, board comments, Randy, thanks. But I appreciate your time. Anything else?
Nope.
Clerk Swayaki?
You already asked her. She said.
I know, I just
No,
was gonna go through the
I'm
list
good with
again.
everything. Thank you for the grant, it's a great, awesome job. Thanks, Camille, for,
And I will,
Good
yeah,
audit.
same,
we did a good
Again,
job. I've
Chief
got a file
Crouchy,
like this big.
congratulations on the new firefighters, of course, but your grants, Kevin's help with the grants as well, and make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:18.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here. All right.